No heroes. No heroes. No heroes, baby.
Hey everybody, today we have the top 32 breakdown for the No Heroes regionals that happened in person in Germany this past weekend. It had a 1,000 player cap, and really excited to go over the results for this event. And if you guys don't know who I am, I'm the Egman. I'm a content creator for the One Piece card game and other Bandai card games here on YouTube, as well as I have a website that kind of catalogs a lot of the tournaments that are happening for the English version of this game and again, other card games. So really appreciate the team at No Heroes for inviting me to do this breakdown for them. And again, if you guys want any of the other content I do, make sure to check out my socials, which will be linked in the description for this, as well as a deck list in this page for this specific event as well. So jumping on into this event, I do want to say again, this was a 1,000 player cap, so 934 players showed up, 10 full rounds of Swiss into a day 2 top 32 cut that we see here. Also, it was all streamed the entire weekend on the No Heroes Twitch, which will be linked in this page, as well as no doubt on their own description here. But also, they will be re-uploading matches to this YouTube channel too, so if you guys want to see them. I did watch a little bit of it live, and I was really happy to see that it was being covered. And also, I will say the finals, spoilers, the finals was really, really good, and I'm really happy that match. I highly recommending checking out that one in particular. So, but going into this top 32 breakdown, we do have 10 Edward Newgates, 9 Zoros, 4 Laws, 3 Dofis, 2 Rob Lucci's, a Monkey Luffy starter deck, but not the red one, it's the black one, 1 Ace, 1 Katakuri, and a Smoker as well. So more or less what we've been seeing, this is obviously the last kind of week of the OPO3 format. We have OPO4 in just a week as of this video being recorded and as such. So that's really, really exciting for that. And a lot of these decks I think we're going to be transforming to the OPO4 format. Some won't, some kind of get changed a little bit. But I think this is a little bit what we've seen towards the end of this format of Newgate and Zoro and Law, I think being the 3 most popular in a lot of ways. But there is a lot of room for some of these other underdogs to sneak in, and that definitely kind of happened for this weekend too. So we're going to go over in this video the top placing list for each one of these leaders, and we're going to start off with our first place list. So this is, and forgive me for any miscommunication or mispronunciations for any of these names, but Hovje with their Zoro here went undefeated the entire weekend. They were seed 1 for day 1, and then after that they went undefeated in the top 32. So didn't drop a match, obviously didn't drop a game in the entirety of day 1, and then dropped a couple games I think in day 2, but again they were best of 3, so you were able to get 1 or 2 of those. But pretty solid for what he is. I will say this list runs pretty much all of the text for it. It does run a lot of the text at smaller numbers for it, but this is kind of the epitome of the event Zoro that we've been seeing. 12 events, which is I think generically the standard at this point. Most of them run between 12 and 14, but a lot of them just hit that 12 for being able to hit that buggy more consistently there. We do have the one Flamenco, Flamenco for this, the Dawn times 1 when attacking. This is honestly really flexible in a lot of ways, being able to use it to get things into range for potentially a Marco effect, but also being able to use it to trade into something. For 1 Dawn underneath it, it becomes a 4K, but it can trade with a 6K, and then if you have a Zoro Dawn underneath, it's a 7K. If it's attacking into something, you give it to -2. So that's a really good kind of value swing for him. And again, it is a Whitebeard pirate, so you do get that. And kind of the same thing, we have Haruta, which also is kind of being the star deck Nami, being able to put the Dawn underneath stuff for free. If you put Haruta out, it just means every turn you get to put the Dawn underneath Zoro for free, and that feels pretty good for you. Other than that, just kind of the standard stuff we've been seeing for a lot of it. Some events, normally people are running 3 or 4 Fire Fists, but 3 I think is kind of the sweet spot where I'd be running them anyways. Kind of running a couple copies of Whitebeard Pirates to supplement some more events, so you can have more searches off your buggy, as well as more cards to discard with Fire Fist and just everything else. And last, Gordon, some people run this, some people don't. I think it's great. I do like using it to get things in a range, which just helps you do some trades and get a lot of value, and mostly just the tempo in your favor. So this is the list there. Congratulations to Hovje for their first place there. And then second place, we do have Justin with their starter deck 8 Monkey D. Luffy. And again, when I saw this, I'm like, oh, surely this is, the the red star deck Luffy right now. This is the newest one. If you guys aren't aware what this does, because honestly, it's something that I thought this leader was neat. I thought there are other leaders that were kind of in the color that were better than it, but definitely getting second in like a 1,000-person event means that there's definitely something going on with this leader. So, but your turn, when a character is KO'd, give up to 1 rested Dawn to this leader. This is not once per turn, and it's by any form of KO. So by an effect such as like with Kaku, or if you're just using, attacking into something, you get the Dawn underneath the Luffy. So there is a lot of potential for you to get that extra Dawn every turn, which again, being able to be a 6k leader pretty consistently, I think in this meta is strong, because it just means you can kind of pressure Newgate every turn, since it's again the most popular deck, I think, outright, at least the more popular at like top cut variances and stuff. So being able to get 6k moderately easy is really nice. I do also like the kind of the mixed package between the CP9 and the Navy. And I've been testing this a little bit, and most of my time when I have been testing, it's like, well, I really do like the CP9. Kaku is like the reason why you play the CP9 stuff is because you get to play this on curve and you get to pop stuff when you play it. And then also with Luffy, that just means you get the extra Dawn underneath them if you do that. So I think that is a strong kind of tactic with that. So we are running a good amount of CP9s, including 2 copies of the Jabra, which I thought was really interesting, especially since we don't play Air Door because we can't. There's also the 6 King pistol, which I do like this one. Being able to get a CP9 into your trash for essentially free is nice. The trigger is pretty good, as well as like helping you cycle through cards from your deck. And like again, like if you need to get 2 CP9s, this counts as a CP9. You can get rid of something else in your hand, you get that too. You have a couple copies of the new Kobe, which can kind of go like 2 for 1 in the sense you can play it. You can pop something 2 or less by using its effect, and then your Luffy becomes a 6k, as well as your opponent's going to have to try to attack into it to get some removal. So unfortunately, it plays into Marco really, really well. So that's kind of like the only reason I don't like it right now, because Marco is so prevalent, but I think that's great there too. We also have the Yuzuka, which I've never seen in a deck list, at least on a topping side, but it's a 3-drop 4k and Dawn times 1 once per turn. When this character battles and KOs one of your opponent's characters, you get to set this character to active. So being able to do like a 2 for 1, I think is great. It has counter, which is fantastic. It is a slash type, which is unfortunate because, it doesn't trade into buggy, but being able to attack with this twice, potentially get 2 KOs, also means that you get 2 extra Dawn on your Luffy, and that can be kind of nice. And then you are kind of, I will be saying, a pretty greedy top end for this one. 3 Sakazukis, 1 copies of the Isho, and then 2 of the Shanks and Kuzan. Kuzan, I feel like has been a little bit slow for a lot of this meta, but the fact that you get to play it and then you get to KO something just means inherently you get an extra Dawn underneath your Luffy, which is nice. And we're not playing any of like the shockwaves or anything that would mean that, we need 2 Dawn or any Dawn up. So the fact that all of our defense is based on having no Dawn up means we can kind of afford to play the Kuzan. And then we also have the Shanks from the Star deck, which a good amount of the black decks, we'll see them throughout this video, we're running this card. And I think I've always found it like a little clunky to play, but if you have Kuzan and you play Shanks, like you get to pop everything that has a cost of 6 or less, and then for everything you were able to KO, your Luffy gets the Dawn for it too. So it is a really strong combo if you're able to get it off. Maybe it's a little cheese, maybe it's asking for a little bit much, especially since neither of those cards are searchable, but I can imagine they kind of work. And honestly, like Zora's around enough that I think Shanks is fine at like 1 or 2 copies. Sometimes I just feel like I don't ever want to play it because it just doesn't do anything on play against some decks, like, especially against Whitebeard. Sometimes they just play their 4s and like that Shanks doesn't really do anything. But really impressive run. Congratulations to Justin for their 2nd place finish. And I'm definitely going to have to reconsider this leader and try it out again, see if there's anything new or see how this deck really feels for me too. So there we go there. And then going into the top 4, we do have Mehmet's Don Quixote, Don Flamingo. Spoilers, this is more or less how most of the Dofi decks are looking right now. They are like 45 plus cards the similar, and that's mostly like an issue with just how many cards are 7 Warlords and which ones are good right now. There's not a lot of the 7 Warlords, and I think the ones that aren't here are just strictly known as not viable as much. So these are just kind of ones. The ratio choices are like if you want to run Kaya or if you want to play Alvida, that's always a choice between the 2. More people I think have been focusing more on using Kaya than Alvida, but I think both are viable. As many Jinbeis as you can run, since this is a little bit of a pricey card for the deck too, and it's only a card that's good for this deck, so that's kind of impactful for it. And then as many like 3 or 4 Mihawk 9 drops, 3 or 4 level up beams, 3 or 4 3000 worlds, and that's usually it. Sometimes there's like, I've seen like overheat show up every once in a while, and I've seen like the gum rain as well. But generically, these are what this deck looks like. I will say this is more of like a player deck where you can get really good with it, and you kind of, there's a lot of unique sequencing and having to have the foresight of what your opponent's going to do. I think is a skill for this deck in general, but deck building less so, I think, right now. But anyways, this is Mehmet's list. Congratulations for that one. And then we also have Giovanni with their Edward Newgate. And we've been seeing a lot of Newgate. I don't think that's any surprise. We're going to probably see it in the next little bit too in OPO4, assuming no additional restrictions, and we'll see if that happens. But it's some variety. I think it's hard to find where the actual variety lives with it. You do have your choices between like Nami or Izo or both. If you're playing Makino or Tama or both as your 2Ks as well. There is like a decision point here for the extra Bart as your blocker. So we are running quite a few blockers in this one. We're playing 2 Tony Choppers, 2 Barts, and 2 Fossas. Fossas obviously I think a little like a 2K 2-drop, but it is searchable, which is nice. Tony Chopper searchable off the Nami. Bart's searchable by neither, but it is a blocker. It has also the Dawn ×2. This character gains plus 3K power, so there is some like weird plays you can do where you can play it. You can attack with it into like something else, and then it stays a 5K, I guess, if you put 2 Dawn. So if you're swinging like a 4, it's a weird card. It's a really, really weird card for how the effect works, but we don't really have a lot of opponents' turns effects, but there we go there. Otherwise, moderately normal except for one change. There's no ace in this list either, and I think a lot of people are just finding that, the ace can be good for like playing and getting like the rush and also being able to kind of trade up into your opponent's board a lot of the time. But sometimes you just want to hit their face, right? And I think Newgates are still very good at doing that. I think sometimes ace is just stuck in hand, or you wish it just was a 1K, or you could do something more flexible with it. And 7 Dawn for something with rush is a lot. It just means you have your 7K with ace, and then not really that much else, because you usually want to keep 1 or 2 open for your Radical Beam guard points, and we are running the one of Red Hawk. So I do think this is definitely a card you can play at 2 of now. There are some decks that this can't play around this, and then you always get like out of an attack, and you get to pop like either a blocker or one of their cards. It's usually a really, really good trade. So I think this is a card that, at least in the end of this format, has been doing very, very well. So that is the list here. Congratulations to Giovanni for their finish there. Jumping into the top 8, we have one unique deck, which is this Trafalgar Law. And I've been talking about Trafalgar Law a lot. It's been out for like almost a year now. Like it's been the set 1 deck, and it gets like a little bit from every other set. And by every other, I mean set 2. There's no set 3 cards in this one at all. You'd see this and be like, oh, is this a set 2 deck? That's just how good Law can be. And it's definitely a deck that has to adjust to the meta that we're seeing. I'd say like, 30 to 40 cards in this deck are pretty much the same in most builds, and then there are some decision points for this one. So for this one particularly, Gordon's not always used, but it is somewhat nice. I do like running Gordon because there are times where I'm like, well, I have 5 characters on the board, and I don't really have time to like put one back, or like the flexibility isn't there. And I do like this for potential removal, especially since we are running more removal in this build than usual, because we are running 2 copies of the Vista as well as 4 whole copies of the Nico Robin. So with that removal, the Gordon makes sense in this fact that you get to use it to get more things into range, which is great. And again, it's just a 1-drop you can play. It's searchable off the Dawn, which is great, and can help you just set up your boards. Because sometimes, again, like you can be just one that you play early, and then you can get to 5, use your leader effect, and then afterwards like use Gordon to give the -1 or -3 to something. So, and then 3 Zoros, 2 Luffy's, a little bit more rush than I say, like more than average rush cards right now, and then 4 Laws, and then usually I still like running the 4 and 4 on both these Laws, because sometimes I just need one of the big boys that are green in particular, and this one has also a counter cost, which is really nice. So, but 3 is fine. So this is the list here. Congratulations to Lennart for their finish on that one. And then breaking into the top 16, we do have Florian with their ace here. And so this list is pretty I don't know, there's a lot of like choices for ace and as a deck in general, mostly coming down to the events that you want to use for it, since you do have a little bit of flexibility, and you do have a lot of event cards that are yours only. But I will say this list in particular has like the fewest amount of events that I've really seen for the deck. We have 1 Rad Beam, 4 Seaquakes, 3 Whitebeard Pirates, 4 Guard Points, and 4 Fire Fist. No copies of Crossfire, no copies of Fiery Doll, just the bread and butter of the good ones. And I know some people like think Seaquakes, like this is kind of a decision on using it, and I know some people like it and some people don't, but a lot of things get hit by this 3k power or less, and we are running 4 copies of the Ace in this build as well. So that just means that we can pop something with 6k or less with just playing this Ace as well as the Seaquake. So I don't think it's bad, especially since with the Ace effect, we do get to discard these to get into range, and then that's really, really strong most of the time. So I do think this is this is the build that we get. Obviously, I think Ace has hit the hardest off these restriction list changes we got a month ago. We'll see if that changes going into OPO4. But I think this is it's really cool to see Ace still top, because it was when the restrictions got announced weeks ago. I really thought it was never going to show up ever again. So I'm happy to see it does get the occasional top here and there. And congratulations again to Florian for their finish there. All right, and then we have 4 unique decks into the top 32, starting off with Lucas's Smoker build here. And I've been a really big fan of Smoker. I do think I like Rob Lucci a little bit more, which we'll talk about in a second. But he is just a pretty solid effect for what he has. Being able to spend 1 Dawn to give something -1 for the turn, and then he can be a 7k leader moderately easy. I would say like obviously less easy than Katakuri, which can always be a 7k if you put a Dawn underneath him. But it's a pretty solid effect, and combos with a lot of your other pieces too, which is really, really nice. But this is the Navy Center build. I know that like you can play like the CP9 build if you want. And you can kind of mix and match. We are playing the Fukuro, but it's just because he's just a really obnoxious blocker to deal with at times. But just more of the Navy package for this one. Playing 4 Garp, playing 4 of the brand new, 4 of the Kobe, which is a little bit high. I do like this card, but I do think the discard form is a little bit expensive at times. 4 Kuzans, though, which is just a fantastic card. 4 Borsalinos, and then also the Sengoku, which I don't see this card often in a lot of lists right now. It is a useful card, and it's kind of just like another copy of Kuzan that is strong if you are going first. Generically, I think you want to go second in this build specifically, but there will be times where you do have to go first. So, and you know what? Looking at, I know I just made fun of it, but the fact that Kobe's in this at 4 copies, this might just be a list that is okay, or maybe prefer to go first at times, because you do have a lot of these odd number plays, and at least more odd number plays than I would normally see in a lot of other lists. So I do think that could be something there. So being able to have a card that's just another copy of Kuzan, give something -4 for the turn, which means you get into Kobe range or Sakazuki range really easy, and get really rid of some of their bigger targets, which is nice. So we also have 4 whole copies of Isho, which is a lot of copies of Isho. Some would say the max copy of Isho, and it is great. The fact that it does help you overcome the fact that you do have to discard a lot of cards for a lot of your effects. This does mean you do get to equalize that, and then it's a 9k, and the Dawn times 1 effect is really strong and can again combo with a lot of your other pieces, especially since we are playing 3 whole copies of Meteor Volcano. This, being able to KO something with a cost of 1 or less is fine, but with all the additional cost reductions you get to do with the Kuzans, with the Sengokus, and with the Ishos, there's a lot of things you can get in range pretty easily, I think, as well. So we have all that, and then 4 copies of Impact Wave as we normally do. But I do like Smoker. I do think it does have some consistency issues at times, but it definitely is the best deck, I feel, for generic removal, which is great, and a lot of good cost removal effects for it, and cool to see again in this top 32 as well. So congratulations to Lucas for getting that in there. Next up, we have 2 Rob Lucci's. They both got top 32. We're going to look at both of them real quick. So we have Nicholas's versions and Maximilian's version as well. A little bit of difference between the two of them on some of the key cards. So specifically for Nicholas's versions here, a little bit more of the CP9 focus for it with the Kaku. We're not even playing Kaku in Maximilian's version, but I do like that. We are running a little bit more of the events as well. Specifically, we're also running the Tempest Kick Sky Slicer, which I like this card, and I have done builds where I use it for pretty much in Smoker, because it kind of the fact that you don't have inherent cost reduction in Rob Lucci can be a little bit tough to play this card, but it also has like the fantastic trigger effect where you get to draw 2 cards. The fact that it's a CP9 is fantastic, which means that you can get it into your trash to use some of your effects for like Kaku or something. I think is great. And it can also get rid of stages, which I don't think comes up a lot, but just a thing to do. Also, we do see Nicholas playing 4 copies of Isho as well, and a single copies of Shanks, which I'd really want to know how good the Shanks felt for them for the weekend. Again, like in Smoker, it kind of makes sense because you can use Smoker's effect with 10 Dawn and play Shanks, and that can help you get maybe something else into range. But like just without like like the 10 drop Kuzan to combo with this, I feel like this doesn't do as much as you sometimes want it to otherwise do. But I do think it's a solid pick at times, but it's just I'm not sure if Rob Lucci is the best leader for it in general. But we also do have just kind of like the regular CP9 package and go again Kuzan, Borsellino, Kaku, Sakazuki, just really great bodies for 4, 5, and 6 cost, and kind of going from there. So this is the build here for Nicholas, and then just kind of the differences here for Maximilian is that we're playing a couple less copies of Isho, but we do have the Kuzan and Shanks combo running 3 whole copies of Kuzan, which is a lot of copies of Kuzan, and 10 Dawn is the maximum amount of Dawn we do have in this game. So having to spend your entire turn to play Kuzan is a little bit expensive, especially since we're playing 4 whole copies of Impact Wave, which means if you play Kuzan, they're just dead in hand as well, and we're not playing any of the 6 King pistols or anything else. So I think that is a bit of an expensive play, but it can work out for you, so that is fine there. I will say, like, I do like I've run both Kobe's and Meteor Volcanoes in my own personal list for Rob Lucci, because this does help you get the your turn once per turn off a little bit easier. So if you're playing against a deck that plays Nami turn 1 and they don't ever swing with it just stays forever, you can do like a big swing with your leader. You can use 2 Dawn with Meteor Volcano, get rid of the Nami, and swing with it again. So I think that's a really good kind of effect for it, and I do like the idea of it. Or neither version is playing the Spandam either. It's just mostly Navy build with a couple of the CP9 and even less with the CP9 in this one, because we're not playing any copies of the Kaku. We're playing the Virgo, which is a 2K, and it's a searchable 2K counter because it is Navy, which is nice. But again, like generally we know the cards that are really good in black right now, and we saw most of them in all 3 decks. So this is Maximilian's list, and to wrap it up, our only yellow deck in the top 32, we have Donut's version here, and I think yellow is going to be better in OPO4. It got like some smattering of results, and I think a lot of the finishes for this meta in general were from just the fact that a lot of people were on yellow because it was the new color, it was the hotness, and it does do pretty okay, but I'm not sure if it's like the best deck to be running in this format. But I definitely think that Counter Curry is going to be good, at least on like the first couple weeks of OPO4. But yellow also has the smallest card pool right now in the game compared to the other colors because it is the newest one. So a lot of these decks are running the same cards just because the card pool doesn't allow for much variation after that. But again, I think OPO4 will have more variety in that one. But most of our staples, a lot of the cards from the trigger cards, so Parasparrow, Cracker at 4 makes sense. We have 2 copies of Smoothie, which is a bit of a decision point. I think like pretty much like this entire top row is the same for everyone, and a lot of the variations for this depend on like if you want to run Smoothie or you feel like Yamato's better. Your 7-drop Linling, your 10-drop, and your 8-drop Katakuri. You're usually running somewhere between 8 and 10 copies between all 3 of these cards. Usually 4 Linlins, and then either 2 of the 7-drops and 3 of the Katakuri are switched like we see here. And then we do have a couple of versions of our copies of our event cards. So either Sovereignty or the Arrows, as well as the Thunderbolts, which like Thunderbolt is such a swingy card. I feel like you can, especially in like this deck where you can't manipulate it at all being in your life, but if you see it in your life, you feel like you just won the game at times, if at the right time. So a very strong card. Sometimes you don't like worry about using it to trash a card from your own life. Sometimes it makes sure that like your Cracker's in range to be able to use its double attack. So I think all that flexibility is good. But yellow's strong. I do think Katakuri is just a generically really good leader. Being able to be a 7K for 1 Dawn every turn is crazy good and very strong, I think, in its own right. So this is Donut's list there, and that is going to be it for this video. Again, thank you very much to No Heroes for letting me do this video for them, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you like me, my content, or at least like this video, make sure to check out my other content on my YouTube. I do some Twitch streams as well, and again, the website here should be linked as soon as it's up in the description below. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.